disrupted.
America that I thought weird thing to happen.
Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So I don't know if it's because of COVID, because of the lies and the smears that we've seen and I've uncovered and read about and exposed, or if it's the war machine or just myself in general, or just having this podcast has made me gone completely insane. But I'm at the point now, and it kind of, messes me up a bit, that I'm questioning everything. Like, I'm just at the point where I don't even know what to believe anymore, and I just have to put everything down into a microscope. Because even things that I like my own principles, I sometimes have to question because of the amount of lies and corruption that goes into everything. And the more we understand of how money plays into a factor of everything, it's just, it's scary. It's scary, and I'm almost at standing confusion of what to believe, where to be on the side of. And even now with climate change. Now, I'm principled when it comes to, the environment. I want to protect and not pollute, and I believe in clean air and clean water. Obviously, those are the essentials of life. But then when we got into, how the World Economic Forum got involved into climate change, and how these billionaire philanthropists are trying to solve and combat climate change by jet setting into another country to discuss in a giant, huge institution on how we need to control people, has made me question the implications of what this crisis is about. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think that there's a problem. I think, we need to better understand nature so we can, help revitalize, and we need a healthier respect to nature. I understand that. I still believe that strongly, principally. But when I see articles like this, and this is why I bring this up, is because NASA, and granted, NASA was one of the first institutions that put forward on climate change. They were the loudest people that were screaming at the top of their lungs about climate change and the catastrophe it was going to become. NASA was one of the first people to bring that to attention. And now there's an article being placed out in NASA. This is from 2016, where they say carbon dioxide fertilization is greening the earth, study finds. So there's actually more plants and more vegetation because of carbon dioxide. And this is, again, something that, I question about the whole climate change narrative. Because I understand there's chemicals in the air. I understand that there's a mass amount of chemicals in the air. But the fact that we're so focused on carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions, while understanding the basics of photosynthesis and how plants regurgitate carbon dioxide and produce oxygen, why are we doing net zero carbon dioxide if that's the thing that we need for plants to survive? And why are we demonizing farmers in the response of climate change? Because that's another thing that got me, skeptical on my own beliefs on climate change, was why is farmers that are creating crops and are the most impacted by environmental change, which is why they're up to date on environments and the climate itself, and they are the most climate conscious people I can imagine. They're the most, the most climate informed people in their profession. Why are they getting demonized for crops, for growing? So this is all just I feel like I'm in a whirlwind. I'm getting whiplash by I have to question myself now. So, and like I said, I don't know if it's just COVID or this is just how I am now. So it says from a quarter to half of Earth's vegetated lands have shown significant greening over the last 35 years, largely due to the rising levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, according to a new study published in the journal Nature Climate Change on April 25th. An international team of 32 authors from 24 institutions in 8 countries led the effort, which involved using satellite data from NASA's Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectrometer and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Advanced Very High Resolution Radiometer instruments to help determine the leaf area index, or the amount of leaf coverage, over the plant's vegetated regions. The greening represents an increase in the levels of plants and trees equivalent in the area to 2 times the continental United States. So, plants are taking off so wildly in the past 35 years that it's grown twice the size of the United States. That's impressive. That's impressive. And this is why I kind of, again, I still consider myself, an ally to environmentalism. I still want to help the lives of people and don't want to pollute and stuff, but I question narratives of climate change when it comes to stuff like this. Like, why are we not mentioning that carbon dioxide, in order to reduce carbon dioxide, why are we not planting more trees? Why are we not planting more vegetation? Why are we not that's a natural way of reducing a carbon footprint, is planting more trees. And considering we're cutting down the rainforest in the Amazon, that's not being mentioned, and we're putting pollutants into the water system and not mentioning about that. But we got to demonize people for owning a Humvee or a Honda Civic. Like, it's just ridiculous. And I scratch my brain at this. Why are we not focused on that? And why are we more focused on people like Al Gore and multi-billionaires that, again, have big, giant, huge mansions that they took down a whole forest to build up, and then they go drive their fancy cars or they take their private jets to another country to discuss climate change? So that, again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. None of it makes sense. And all the conversations, there's not mention of hemp and what a great natural resource that would be right now, because that would reduce the carbon footprint. It would stabilize the agricultural industry, the manufacturing industry. None of that's being mentioned. None of, planting more trees is being mentioned. Not even the study. I didn't even know about this till now. And this apparently came out in 2016. So, green leaves use energy from sunlight through photosynthesis to chemically combine carbon dioxide drawn in from the air with water and nutrients trapped from the grounds to produce sugars, which are the main source of food, fiber, and fuel for life on Earth. Studies have shown that increased concentrations of carbon dioxide create photosynthesis, spurring plant growth. And it's funny. It's funny because that's true. That's true. I learned I learned this in grade school. But the funniest thing is, and literally the other day I heard this, is on the radio here in Canada. I'm not sure it was Shell or Petrocan, but they did an advertisement on the radio saying that they were investing billions of dollars in a carbon capture vessel. It's a machine that's going to capture all the carbon dioxide that they're exposing into the air. It's going to collect into this machine, and store it. And I'm thinking to myself, the fact that we're spending billions of dollars for a machine to collect carbon dioxide when literally nature has been doing it since the dawn of nature, since this planet existed. Like it's the ridiculousness of like some of the solutions. And again, carbon dioxide is not the biggest problem of this. It's the other chemicals that are being introduced, the methanes, the toxins that are really in the air. And how we're polluting. None of that's ever being mentioned in the context of, climate change awareness. You hear it on mainstream media. It's all about the electric cars or, lithium batteries. But then Joe Rogan showed the video of, how much it takes out of the earth to create lithium batteries. And again, exposed a lot about this because I have a lot of products. I used to endorse lithium batteries. I still kind of do. Rechargeable things. I still kind of do. It's in our phones. It's in everything now. And I have a lot of those products. And I didn't even think to realize that it causes more damage to the planet and humanity to mine those minerals to get the batteries that are only going to last like a few years. Whereas there's other technologies and other advancements that we could be looking at. I think there was even a thing that came out about making batteries out of hemp. And I was like, okay, this seems interesting. And apparently the science is all there. So I don't know why I understand there's a problem, and I agree with that, but they're coming up with the wrong solutions. I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that there definitely is a crisis. They're just going in the wackiest direction. Instead of yelling at the person for having a Honda Civic and not going for a Prius, not forcing people to go to Prius, that's not the problem here. And the fact that we're not having these again, it's just, anyway, I should read on to this. However, carbon dioxide fertilization is not the only cause of increased plant growth. Nitrogen. That's the thing that they're demonizing farmers for. Nitrogen. Land covers change and climate change by a way of global temperature, precipitation, and sunlight changes all contribute to the greening effect. To determine the extent of carbon dioxide's contribution, researchers ran the data for carbon dioxide and each of the other variables in isolation through several computer models that mimic the plant growth observed in satellite data. Results showed that carbon dioxide fertilization explained 70% of the greening effect, said co-author Ranji Meena, a professor in the Department of Earth and Environment at Boston University. The second most important driver is nitrogen at 9%. So we could see what an outsized role CO2 plays in the process. And also just exposes the flaw in the whole demonizing farmers. That's why people in the Netherlands were protesting, because it made absolutely no sense to go after farmers who are climately conscious already to demonize them for not being more considerate about climate change. And then we realize that they're going after these farms, these particularly family-run farms, because people like Bill Gates and other billionaires want to cultivize the agricultural industry. They want to buy out all this farmland, take away their resources, take away the financial stability of these families, and move people away to plant-based foods, which we know plant-based foods come from chemicals. It's not that kind of plant, folks. About 85% of the Earth's ice-free lands is covered by vegetation. The area covered by all the green leaves on Earth is equal to, on average, 32% of the Earth's total surface area. oceans, lands, and permanent ice sheets combined. The extent of the greening over the past 35 years has the ability to fundamentally change the cycling of water and carbon in the climate system, said the lead author, Zhenxun Xu, a researcher from Peking University, China, who did the first half of the study with Mayan as a visiting scholar at Boston University. Every year, about half the 10 billion tons of carbon emitted into the atmosphere from human activities remains temporarily stored in about equal parts in the oceans and plants. While our study did not address the connection between greening and carbon storage in plants, other studies have reported an increase in carbon sink on land since the 1980s, which is entirely consistent with the idea of a greening Earth. While rising carbon dioxide concentrates in the Earth's air can be beneficial for plants, it is also the chief culprit of climate change. So this is, again, they mention all this, but then they also have to put this in too. The gas which traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere has been increasingly since the industrial age due to the burning of oil, gas, and coal and wood for energy, and it's continuing to reach concentrations not seen in the last 500,000 years. The impacts of climate change include global warming, rising sea levels, melting glaciers, and sea ice, as well as more severe weather events. So, I mean, I'm still, again, I still believe that there is a crisis on foot. This is not going to completely say that climate change is an absolute hoax. I think there is a situation at foot. I just think that we have the absolute wrong decisions and we have the wrong people looking at these effects. Because people that, look towards the billionaire class or the Democratic Party, same with the Republican Party, they are not the saviors of this. You think that the World Economic Forum really cares about climate change when they jet set off or they have their billionaire mansions that take up an entire forest? You think they really care about the importance of rising sea levels? Probably not. Because if it actually happens, they can just go to another country or go inland or wherever they go. They really don't care. So, I think the point I'm trying to say is that we should not be looking towards these fanatics, these kind of celebrities, even Greta Thunberg, who I just think now every day is just making the worst for herself and just not in the interest of what the purpose of what she was trying to do, has just completely gone into the brink of, corruption and just being in part with the billionaire class. I think the biggest thing is that, there are solutions out there. I think there's a lot of discussion that we need to have about this. And like I said, I'm surprised, literally surprised every time that climate change even gets mentioned. They don't mention, planting more trees. I don't understand why hemp is not being part of this solution to all this. I think it would be a miracle crop that would stimulate both agriculturally and manufacturing, and it continues to grow and it would solve so many things. We don't mention about that. We don't mention about different technologies. We don't mention about nuclear power, because a lot of people have been informing that nuclear power is beneficial to the planet and it's beneficial to the environment. Now, there's a lot of skepticism to that, but that's why we need to have conversations. So, I don't know. There's a lot of this I scratch my brain around, and I'm more on the fence on certain things, but it's interesting that NASA released a study, and even this is not even a part of the conversation. And the fact that CO2 emissions, you don't think about right away until you really sit down, but CO2 emissions, again, we're spending billions of dollars on machinery to somehow carbon capture the CO2, the carbon dioxide in the air when literally we could just plant a forest of trees and grow more crops that would suck in more carbon and be a hell of a lot cheaper and more beneficial. So I think we just need a more healthier respect and understanding of nature. And we just need to find a way to utilize us and our technology for the benefit of nature, for the natural world. I think that's the thing. And also, just it's funny because reading this reminds me of the George Carlin joke that he used to make about climate change, is that the planet is fine. The planet could not care less if we're on it or not. Like, it's a rock. Save the planet, it's a ridiculous notion, because the planet is a rock. It doesn't care if we're part of it or not. It's us that we have to worry about. We're causing our own destruction. We got to find a way to dismantle this and have these conversations. And also mention the real polluters out there. Nobody's mentioned about the military, by the way. The U.S. military, which is the predominant polluter and has caused more devastation environmentally than any car, any Humvee, and any of them. The United States military empire has caused more devastation on the environment. Nobody's mentioned about that. How nuclear war and bombs and droning, like, it's doing worse for us. So there's a lot to be said. I just wanted to share this with you.